me. But what I didn't expect was the identity crisis behind all of it. I was like, I don't like who I am in this.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't feel like me.
Yeah.
And I had to really question, because there was unhealth, right, in
Mm-hmm.
the career-driven life of
Mm-hmm.
being like, that's what identifies you. That's where you find your worth and your value is what you can contribute. That's where I found my identity and worth, was all the atta girls at work. And
Mm.
I had to do a lot of self-evaluation. So to make a long story short, I'm at rock bottom because I'm like, this isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. This motherhood thing, like, I love my child. She's so amazing and beautiful. And also I feel super guilty for not loving this.
Hello, hello. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Christian Wellness for Weary Women. I am your host, Cassie Hutton, and I am here today with a special guest, Aurie Riley. And so I'm so excited that she's here to share her wisdom with us and what she does. Just a reminder that if you're interested in working with me, you can always go to my website, cassiehutton.com, or join.cassiehutton.com. And as you all know, when I talk about HTMA testing and minerals, I talk about the dirt. We are made from the dust. And so Aurie talks a lot about gardening and how life lessons from the garden. And so I just love what we're going to talk about today, how it all ties into HTMA testing and mineral balancing. So with that, I'm going to read Aurie's profile, or her bio, and then I'm going to let her take it from there. So Aurie Riley is a purpose and growth coach and founder of the faith-based wellness brand Sunshine Papery. She is devoted to helping moms move beyond survival mode and into lives marked by clarity, peace, and intentional growth. Through coaching, meaningful conversations, and thoughtfully designed products, she offers practical tools that support emotional well-being, spiritual depth, and purposeful daily living. So welcome to my podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Cassie. I'm so excited for our conversation today, because podcasts are so unique in that we skip right over all of the niceties of common conversations and we talk about the real stuff, the deep things. And I really hope that your listeners feel like their gap of time and space has also been bridged and that they're part of this conversation. Wherever they find themselves and what we're fixing to talk about, for them to know that there are other women out there that are thinking about these things. They are talking about these things, and we are ready and available to like have those conversations, and we're ready to like cut the crap and start helping other women, because
that's so true.
It's almost become like a slogan of mine that like getting to heaven is a team sport. It is not something you're going to do by yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. We do. We think that we can just live these isolated lives, and then we wonder why our health is so bad, or we wonder why we're so depressed, or we wonder why we're so worn out. And it's because God never intended us to live in such isolation. And I agree with you when you say like it's time to cut through the crap, especially in women's health.
Each individual, I feel like our insides and our world and our understanding of it, everyone is like an onion. And, you know, as you go through a personal growth journey and you start with, you know, getting out of the victim mindset of I'm powerless, my circumstances are terrible, everything's going wrong, my house is chaos, my kids are like crazy, I yell too much, but it's all their fault, my husband never helps me. When we go from that mindset to this is my home and this is my life and I can do something about it, I don't have to sit here anymore. And I just recorded a podcast episode about, you know, like we have to realize as women, like no one is coming to save us.
Yep.
We've got to start saving ourselves. God has done the ultimate redeeming of our souls, but he's waiting to see what we do with our lives.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we got to get up off our tush and start doing something about it and get out of the victim mindset and into an empowerment of, this is my life. I only get one, and I'm going to decide how I spend it. Because my favorite, well, I have two favorite parables, but one of them is the parable of the talents, where the master gives each person a certain amount of money, and he leaves and he goes away and he gives them time and space to figure out what they're going to do with it. And we've been given the same tasking. So we got to figure out what we're going to do with it. We only get one, and we only get a certain amount of talent to go and invest. And what are we going to do when Jesus comes back and demands a reckoning? What did you do with what I gave you?
Yeah.
So when you make that initial transition from victim to empowerment, then I tell everyone, like, I'm such a slow cooker. I'm like the crock pot of ideas. A coach or someone can tell me something, and like it takes a long time for that to percolate and fully form into this new shift that I have to make, this new realization, this new understanding. And oftentimes I find women who are completely depleted and worn out and burnout, and it's not necessarily because they're completely in victim mindset. It's because they've already tried all the things. They feel like they've already done everything. They tried everything. They made all the changes, and it didn't stick.
Yep.
It didn't work, and they've used up all their energy on it. So now they're like, I have nothing left to give. And so you really have to give people time to slowly make shifts, because those shifts that are made slowly are sustainable. Slow growth is sustainable growth. When you try and implement everything, a complete overhaul, all at one time, we shouldn't be surprised if you end up burnt out.
Yeah.
Because you're not integrating all facets of your life when you do that. Your mental well-being, your physical well-being, but also like the real life you're living. When we talk about wellness and health, it's like our world and the communities that we live in and our understanding of wellness is either mental health and wellness or physical health and wellness, and neither one of those take into consideration the real life we're living every day, our schedules, our kids' schedules, our husband's work schedules, maybe our work schedules, and how to make it all fit together and what our unique blend is.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that you are making a point to call it out and say it's time to stop segregating the two. Our mental health and our physical health tie hand in hand, and that we have to start integrating all of these things into our life. And then you talked about slowly walking into the next thing, or in other words, what I call it in my course is like building capacity whenever I'm talking to my clients. But to talk about scripturally, it says that God's given us grace upon grace, and that scripture is talking about capacity upon capacity. We don't just start by God's not giving us all of the grace all at once. If he did, then our cup would be too full. And so grace upon grace means that we're walking a little bit in it, and then we're slowly building up. Which brings me to the question, really tying back into what the title of this podcast and where we're really going with it is seasonal living for the modern woman, and talking about seasons and cycles of growth. So tie that into really seasonal living for us.
Yeah, so where my journey started and where I find other women is when we are at our absolute lowest. Like, we have hit rock bottom. Like, there is no further down we could possibly go. And we're exhausted. We are snappy. We're irritable. We feel lost.
Yeah.
We feel like God doesn't see us. He doesn't care. We
Crying all the
feel
time.
crying all the time. We're
Yeah.
like, what is
Experiencing.
it? Is it
Yeah.
hormones or what?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I'm
You're
just
questioning
crying all the time.
everything. For me,
Yeah.
I was like, I started having irregular cycles along with everything that you just mentioned. And so I was like Googling everything, like, what
Yes.
is this? And I was 8 weeks postpartum. And so here I am bleeding again. It was like, what is this? Is what? And yeah, so I was questioning all the hormone things.
Yeah. And that was how mine was too. And I'm questioning, like, where is God? Where is God in
Mm-hmm.
all of this? Like, I we were talking before we started, like, I felt so betrayed and lied to about motherhood
Mm,
because there was no, it was either or. And this is how society says, oh, you can do it all, you can be it all. And so then we're expected to do that. And then people wonder why we fail. And it's like, no, you can be anything, but you can't be everything.
yeah.
But it was like, before you have children, you're on a trajectory where your career or your goals or whatever drive who you are. That's how people identify you. And then, but like at least in my life, it was, well, once you have babies, you'll never think about work again. They'll be the greatest thing you ever had. You won't even miss it.
Mm,
And it was like this picture was painted of motherhood, that I would just love being in the kitchen all the time and being home and being this nurturing, like, I don't know, goddess of motherhood. I don't know. I don't know what that is. And then, like, they sent me home with this little tiny human being. It was like, here, this is yours now. And I'm like, it cries all the time. Like, what? I'm leaking. I'm sweating. Like, I'm bleeding. Things are happening. Like, what is this? And then, and then you get into the routine of, like, every day you wake up and it is Groundhog Day. And it's like, between the diapering, the crying, the
yeah.
feeding, the pumping, the house cleaning, and it just, like, repeats day in and day out.
Yeah.
I mean, for years.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of expected. But I felt so lost in it. I was like, I just spent 10 years of my life, maybe more, building towards this really cool career that I was really loving. I was really enjoying it. I felt like I was building great connections with people. I was contributing to a team. To this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, is my purpose in life just to keep another human being alive? Like, and so I felt like God had kind of abandoned me
Yeah.
because, I think sometimes too, like, we tend to make all the life changes all at once. Like, I see a lot of women who are like, oh, we're building a house and we're moving while I'm, like, 9 months pregnant. And we sold my house while I was in labor and moved across the country for a new job for my husband. Like, within a week of having this new baby, I was like, 0 out of 5 stars. Do not
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey,
that's a
we went through
surefire.
it too. The baby was 3 weeks old. The baby was 3 weeks old, and that's when I hit burnout. And
Yes.
I worked with another mother who had her 13th baby, and they moved across the country in a camper. So yeah, I mean, what we're saying is it's not worth it to do
Yeah.
something like that. It's not worth it. It's the move in and of itself is stressful on the body, and then on top of that, you're literally healing from having a baby. It's not, your body literally can't handle it, and so it's something that you'll never be able to repay your body back because you're doing way too much in a time where your body needs that healing.
Yeah. And, I tell everyone, like, that is a surefire way to fry your circuit boards.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. But what I didn't expect was the identity crisis behind all of it, because nobody told me about that. Nobody told me about the shift of identities and what people told me I would want to be. I was like, I don't like who I am in this.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't feel like me.
Yeah.
And I had to really question, because there was unhealth, right, in
Mm-hmm.
the career-driven life of
Mm-hmm.
being like, that's what identifies you. That's where you find your worth and your value, is what you can contribute. for me, I was an engineer. I worked for Lockheed Martin. And so like, I'm patriotic. I am supporting my military. Like, this is what drives me. That's where I found my identity and worth, was all the atta girls at work. And I had to do a lot of self-evaluation. So to make a long story short, I'm at rock bottom because I'm like, this isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. This motherhood thing, like, I love my child. She's so amazing and beautiful. And also I feel super guilty for not loving this.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it doesn't feel like this was what I was created for. And when I look at my daughter's face, I see this bright future. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just know it's bright and shiny and it's beautiful and it has a lot to offer the world. And if her future looks like that to me, there must have been a time when it looked like that for me.
Yeah.
But it sure didn't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah.
So in this journey of personal growth, as we talk about the big picture here, this is what I call winter. It's like the dark night of the soul. Your life feels like barren. Like there's no happy or joy or things like growing or like moving forward in your life. You're just like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I am an empty shell of myself. I like, but I also know like I can't go on like this. And for me, I was like, something's got to change.
So how old was your daughter whenever this was after? How many kids do you have?
I just have one.
Okay,
I learned my lesson. I tell everyone I learned my lesson.
Listen, it's, go ahead.
She's perfect. I don't need another one. It'll
That's
just
right.
mess
Yeah. So how old was she when you really came to this realization of, I need to come out of my winter season?
Yeah, she was 1.
Okay.
And, we had moved away from our support network of friends and other moms and my friends who were also having children at the time. And so I was half a country away from them and had no friends, no support network. My husband was gone all day at work. Yeah. And I was realizing that my parents' help was like not all that helpful. I love them dearly, but they provide support on their terms.
Yep.
And that wasn't always helpful.
Yeah.
And
sometimes gaslighting even.
Yes, very much so. And so I had to step up into this. She was the most perfect gift for me because I would do things for her that grew me that I would have never done for myself. So God created in me a mama bear when he gave me her who could stand up for her. And in so doing, start standing up for myself.
That's really
and
good.
The little girl I used to be.
Yeah.
What does she need? What kind of nurturing does she need?
Yeah.
In addition to what does my child need? And so I had to start realizing like, no one is here to help me. And I don't know where God is, but I'm looking around and I don't see him.
Yeah.
But, COVID was happening at the time. And so we had nowhere to be. And I was like, well, I got to do something. The therapist says to get outside and get some sunshine before 9 a.m. So I got to do something. So my grandmother actually loved to garden. And I always think of her every morning with her coffee cup in hand, strolling around her little garden path, just putzing around in her moo-moo and like pulling the stray weed here and there. And it just makes me smile. And I cherish those memories of watching her do that from her screened-in porch when I would go and visit. And so I thought, you know what? That memory makes me feel warm inside instead of dead. And so I'm going to lean into that. And the very first action of hope I ever did was order a bag of daffodil bulbs because it was winter on the inside of my heart. Yeah. But also it was beginning to be winter outside. And I don't think that was an accident. Yeah. So I ordered these bulbs because you can plant daffodil bulbs as long as the ground isn't frozen hard. Like, if you can dig in the dirt, you can plant a daffodil bulb. It's never too late. It's never too late. Like the metaphors, man.
Yeah.
They're amazing. So I ordered this bag of daffodil bulbs, and I remember the day I planted them. It was nap time, so I went out. I'm sure my mailman thought I was nuts. Every time he drove by, it was like the crazy lady's doing something absurd in her yard. I'm out there with like an auger drill, like drilling.
Did you have? We need to know if you had your grandmother's moo on.
I know, good thing. I've like actually put pants on. But I'm out there like with my auger, like drilling 150 holes up the side of my driveway, you know, as he comes by to deliver the mail.
Yeah.
But I remember it was cold, it was kind of misty and wet, and the wind was blowing really sharp. And so like I'm kind of getting wet and it's cold, but I just remember it feeling on the outside like I was feeling on the inside. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this.
Yeah.
But as I put every single daffodil bulb down into the ground, I was like, this isn't goodbye. This is, I will see you later. And I put it down in the hole and I covered it up. And I knew that it was going to give me something bright and cheery at the end of enduring a winter season. But I spent that whole winter like thinking about those daffodils and like walking up and down the driveway and looking for the little sprouts. Like, have they come up yet? Have they come up yet?
Yeah.
But what I've realized is in order for a daffodil to grow and become everything it needs to be, it has to spend a winter season putting down strong roots. It's in the dark. The work it's doing, you can't see it. And then it has to push up these really strong leaf stems that push up through a frozen ground towards the sun, towards the warmth and the light. But the reason why it has to push up through the frozen ground is so that those leaves and that stem is strong enough to support such a big blooming head on it and withstand any late frost or snow or anything else that might come in suddenly. The reason why daffodils can bloom early and bloom like with snow on the ground is because of the hard work they put in during the winter season, pushing up through the hard stuff.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful message. That's amazing. I love that so much. There really is so much to learn through the garden. I mean, really there is. And in the when we're in the gardening season, whatever time of the year it is, there are different things that are going to grow. There are different things that we're planting. There really is. Everything about the garden is seasonal.
Yes.
And so I love that you just gave us that analogy and used the daffodil, and that was what God used in your life specifically, was the daffodil.
And the way that this has all come about too is like, and the most comforting thing I ever learned was that the seasons that I was feeling in my life are actually part of a normal cycle of personal growth that everyone goes through.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because this was the question coming up in my mind, and not that I haven't ever asked myself this question, but for women in particular, why is it, do you think, and you may not have the answer because I don't have the answer for this, but why is it that motherhood does this to us so strongly? It seems like every mother I've ever talked to goes through this.
Hi! Psalm 127 and verse 3, I struggled with a lot because when I was in my winter season, this did not feel like a blessing.
Right.
And it says, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. And I struggled with that. How are children such a blessing when they're so exhausting? And I'll tell you, it's that exhaustion that actually slows you down enough to be able to look at what you're doing with your life.
Yeah.
To examine yourself. Having a child is the fastest, easiest way to make sure you are on an accelerator personal growth program.
Yeah, no doubt. For sure.
It is. But the thing is that I tell everyone, God put me in timeout.
Yeah.
Said, what you're doing is living on autopilot, and it's not for the kingdom's greatest good.
That's really good. I haven't
It's
thought of it as
for,
autopilot is a really good word for that, because yeah, it's like we do what, like we get up and like we have the same routine all the time, and then all of a sudden something disrupts that routine, and that's when we're going like, I don't like
yeah,
this, and our brain is going like, I have to learn something new, and this doesn't feel normal. But in our, I think this was the point I was making a second ago, and I lost my train of thought. But in our society, we're always pushed to go 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 go, and so then when we have children, it feels completely opposite of what we've been taught, especially as women, because women should be taught from a very young age. You have a daughter, I have daughters, and my focus a lot, especially as they get older, I mean, they're 6 and 3 right now, but as they get older, especially as they start to their cycle and things like that, my mindset right now is already, I need to teach them to slow down. I need to teach them to slow down. I need to teach them to operate in their masculine energy when they need to during the month, and then really slow down whenever they're supposed to, and treat their body nicely when there's in those seasons. We really actually go through 4 seasons in a month as women.
yeah, we do.
But because we had the energy to push through when we were younger, and we never allowed ourselves that time to rest, and we were living in a man's world. We went to school every day. We continued with sports every single day, no matter what cycle we were on. And we never stopped to think about it. No one ever taught us that, you actually have low energy during this time. This is actually why you're experiencing PMS, or, all of those things. And so then, yeah, we get to 30, 40 years old, and all of a sudden we're like, what's going on with my body? And it's like, because you spent through all of your energy. You dipped into your savings account way too much when you were young. Yeah. And so you're paying the price now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think motherhood is a blessing because it is so hard. If we're never challenged, if we're never faced with anything that feels risky or scary, then we never stop to be intentional. We just keep going.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you have to set down your own will for what you want for your life and start asking yourself, what am I doing with my life that enhances God's kingdom? Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted me to get out of that season. So I was living on autopilot. I'm like got the super exciting, thrilling career. Everyone thinks is cool. It's got like a cool factor because I'm launching fighter jets and like traveling and doing all this really fun stuff. And then
which does
all
sound
of
really
that's
fun.
taken away. And it was really fun. And then all of that's taken away. And I'm put in basically quarantine, literally, and with a small child, so a challenge. And I had to figure out in all of the diapering, because babies don't tell you, oh, thank you so much for wiping me and making me clean. You did such a great job changing that pill.
They scream and cry when we do it. And they hate it.
They don't tell you that. There are 0 Atta girls in motherhood. And so then you have to question, like, where am I getting my worth from? Where am I getting my validation from? And if our answer is not God, then it's going to be meaningless. And it's going to basically end up, like you said, dipping into our savings account, just always striving for the next Atta girl.
Yeah.
Now, when we think about this in seasons, all of this lends to a winter season. But when you make the pivotal decision that you're not staying in that pit anymore, that God has created you for a singular purpose, and that you can use motherhood to learn things about yourself, motherhood is a mirror. Those children are a mirror for you. If there's things that make you angry or trigger you or irritate you or make you sad, all of that is reflecting something about your heart. It's not them. They're just little natural beings doing what they were created to do. The triggers are something about yourself that God's trying to reveal in you. But what we do and what society has told us to do is, well, since you're not busy as mothers, let's tell you that you have to be busy. Mm-hmm. You got to do all the kid programs. You got to be the perfect classroom mom. You got to show up to all these extracurriculars. You got to pack the perfect lunch. You've got to keep the perfect house. And so they cram pack our schedule so that we never have time to think about it.
Yeah.
So then we're just in auto response mode, yelling at our kids, snipping at our kids, and feeling shame and guilt later. Mm-hmm. And that, I'll tell you, is how Satan keeps you trapped. So when you decide you're not living like that anymore, and you reach out to somebody like Cassie or like me, say, I need help, or a therapist. I called my OBGYN the first day. I was like, I'm cranky all the time. Please tell me. She referred me to a therapist. Best thing that ever happened to my world. So I start unraveling my past, but then I realized I need a plan for my future.
That's good.
So I got a life coach. I was like, I need a coach. I need a coach to call the plays because I don't know what to do. And so through life coaching, I learned that like you've got to get your team. You've got to get a professional coach that's further along than you, who can come back and say this and read the label on your bottle. Because when you're in it, you can't read the ingredients. You can't identify what the label on your tag says when you're the plant in the pot, right? So a lot of times it takes a third-party person on the outside to say, this is what I'm seeing. And in my experience and in my expertise, this is how you work with your ingredients, your seed, your genetics, your life. When you start pouring time and resources into that, that's when I call, like, we start experiencing springtime. That's a time when you identify your seed, you make a garden plan, you identify what plants are going in, and you start planting. You start planting little seeds. And you start pouring a lot of time and energy and nutrients into that, and you start cultivating a garden. Our lives are a garden to be cultivated. And so in your personal life, that's what you're doing. You're planting these little seeds. You're pouring lots of time and energy and focus into that. And if you have a good coach, they're going to say, you know what? You don't need to plant everything all at once. We are not going to get a Gardener's World British garden on the first day. Like, start with something you're familiar with that you know how to grow. Do one thing. Master that, and then we'll add the next plant.
Yeah.
So you start with your one seed and you plant it and you're nourishing it. This is springtime. Those little sprouts are going to start coming up and you're going to be so encouraged because you're going to start seeing these little results, and it's so great and it's very encouraging, and it's going to like give you a lot of energy, like, yes, this is working. And then the heat hits. And we're both in Texas, so we know just how hot it can get.
Yeah, I'm so sad usually when it gets hot because my tomato plants, are the first ones to go. And I love tomatoes. And it seems like it takes tomatoes so long to finally actually ripen. And then it's like as soon as they ripen, it's too hot for them to keep growing.
Well, so I love tomatoes, my absolute favorite. In fact, I designed a pair of shoes with my artwork on it that's tomato print. Like, cool. I love tomatoes. So tomatoes actually taught me so much about self-growth because you got to get them in the ground early, start them early indoors so that you get a good sprout going. And then if you get them outside and we don't have any late frosts or you keep them covered, you protect those new seedlings. Then you can get a small crop before the heat gets over about 90 degrees. And when the heat hits, then it becomes about mulching, maintenance, and watering. Because summer is what tests your new resolve. Did you mean it? Did you really want those tomatoes? Because you put them in the ground. Or are you going to give up because it's hot and it's hard and they're not looking so good?
Yeah, that's good.
And what this is God asking, did you learn the lesson from winter? Like, because here comes the test. We're going to test it to see how strong your plant is. And I'm going to pull up Romans chapter 12 and verse 2. Let me pull that up real quick. And it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what the will of God is. It is through this testing, this summertime, that we really start to understand whether the changes we've made are sustainable or not. What have we planted? What are we serious about? What are we trying to grow here? And did we mean it?
Yeah.
And James 1 and verse 2 says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. How can you be joyful when you're going through such a really hard season that feels like it's burning you?
Right. Yeah. See,
That's
I used to, this is something actually I've been thinking about on the last couple of days is that particular scripture. And before burnout hit, I could usually accept trials and tribulations with joy, meaning that I understood it brought me closer to the Lord most of the time because I was turning to Him to help me resolve my issues. I was turning to Him for comfort. I was turning to Him to heal my heart, or, I was able to apply scripture, like pray for my enemies, things like that. But when full on burnout hit and my body was physically depleted and not operating properly any longer, I felt very abandoned by God. I felt very angry towards God.
The thing that I derived the most comfort from my daffodils about during that season, that, honestly, like in our monthly, so side tangent, in our monthly cycles, like you said, we have seasons, but the opposite seasons, winter and summer, and then spring and fall, they mirror each other.
Mm-hmm.
So in your menstrual cycle, your nutrients, the things you need to be eating, will mirror each other, weeks 1 and week 3, and then week 2 and week 4. So those are your mirrors, and they're very similar. So winter and summer are very similar in a lot of ways. They mirror each other. So they're tests, but they feel different, but it's still that really hard testing. And the thing that I derived the most comfort about my daffodils was when I felt like God wasn't here, that He had totally abandoned me. This is why God left us our natural world, because when you look around, say, if He can do that, if he cares about this daffodil bulb that I'm putting in the ground, so much so that He's going to cause it to grow and bloom, and He's going to take care of it so that it does what it's supposed to do, He's going to care for me that much.
Yeah.
He can cause, like Jesus says, He cares for the sparrows. He sees every single sparrow that falls. He knows every number of hair on your head. And when we have a hard time seeing Him, we can look around and see His care.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I love that.
And the thing is that this brings us back to summer, is that becomes a support, a mental support for us.
Mm-hmm.
And when in springtime, when we're experiencing all this exciting growth and things, if we don't put in this foundational support in our garden, like a climbing trellis, things that are anchored in, that we can tie into, when summer hits, and if you're doing all the right things, you're mulching, you're watering, you're taking care of yourself, you're going to still experience growth, even though it's a really hot and hard season. But if you don't have your supports, it's just all going to fall over.
Yeah. I love that. I love the analogy of the trellis.
Yeah. And so these are mental and spiritual supports that we can put in. Like, I don't feel God, but I can look around and I can see Him, and I can see His care.
Yeah.
And if he's caring for the physical world, he's going to care for our inner world too.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Because I was able to pinpoint, how God led me to work with a certain physician during my time. It was like, okay, well, obviously he led me to HTMA testing. And so even though I didn't feel God or hear God or, I was really questioning where he was during that time, there were certain things that were easy, that should have been hard, right? I mean, I think,
The thing is too, is like, when you're starting new things, like taking care of yourself and actually giving yourself the nutrients that you need, you also have to start thinking about what habitual supports am I putting in order to make sure that this habit sticks, right? So this is where it becomes the question of, okay, let's consider practical life. What new routines are we putting into place? What space are we creating out of our busy in order to cultivate intentional time spent, energy spent? What structures are we putting in to support this new vision, this new seed, this new thing that we're working towards? We have to consider our days. We have to look at our time and our habits and our routines and our schedules and figure out what needs to be pulled out because it's a weed,
yeah,
and what needs to be pruned back. See, the other cool thing about tomatoes is that in springtime and in summertime, they just put on so much growth. They love the warm weather. They love all the spring rain, and they look great, and they're so exciting to grow. But a lot of times, if you let all that green growth just go, you're going to have a beautiful looking bush, but guess what's not going to be on it?
no fruit.
No fruit. You have to prune tomatoes,
Yeah.
and prune them hard in order for them to put on fruit, because
Yeah.
they will spend all their energy making bushes and making
Yeah.
leaves, and it's going to look pretty from the outside. But you, as the creator of your garden, the gardener in your garden, you have to direct that plant where to put its energy. And you
Yeah,
do
that's
that
good.
by, you got to prune things out.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
Look at
that.
the schedule. What things have to come out in order to create space for the things that matter, the things that are actually going to bear fruit in your life?
Yeah, and that's easier said than done so many times. But it is, and that's again going back to building capacity. The what I teach my clients. You just have to start taking things out in order to rebuild. And a lot of times that comes with identity shifts, especially in motherhood, because our children get older, we're getting older, your energy shifts, their needs change. And so we really have to take a hard look at our schedule. I hate that we're running out of time here because we're having such a good conversation.
I know.
I do want you to let my listeners know where they can find you, what offers you have for them. We're going to have all those links down in the show notes. And then I have a question for you. I want you to leave with my audience before we go. And I didn't give you this question ahead of time, so I hope, but I know you'll have an answer.
Yeah. So, we want to finish this discussion about seasons. I'm actually hosting a workshop on April 24th.
Okay.
So if you head to my website, there is, and you can go to like sunshinepapery.com/pages/workshop, and you can sign up to come to that. It'll be a whole hour where we're going to go over, kind of the tripping points in a mother's day, where things tend to fall apart and what we can do about it so that we can live in sync with our seasons. Because when you normalize that the hard things we go through are just a part of a cycle of seasons, you can relax into it. And it brings a lot of ease. And that's really what people are looking for. I also have a podcast called Planted on Purpose, and this is what we talk about there all the time.
Yep.
The plant metaphors are never ending. We talk about these real things, we talk about these real challenges, and we do it in a way where you can step outside and look around and see the lessons. The next time you plant a tomato, you better believe it's never going to be the same again.
Yeah.
you're going to be thinking about all of this, all the things that we've talked about today. So that's where people can find me. My social media is my first two initials, A_A, and then underscore my last name, Riley, Riley. So you can come find me there. And yeah, our workshop's just going to be a really, really good one. So
yeah, go join the workshop. I love that. And I will, again, all the links will be in the show notes. So just go down there and you can connect with Aurie. Okay, so here's my question. And it's something that you said before we started the podcast. And I thought, oh, that's a great question to ask at the end to leave our listeners with. So you said we have to start asking different questions. And so what questions do you encourage my audience to start asking themselves?
So the biggest one is, what kind of plant am I? And by that I mean, what are my growing conditions that I need in order to thrive? How much water do I need? How much sunshine do I need? I mean, this can be physical water and physical sunshine, but it can also be mental. Like, what breaks do I need? What support do I need? What is my seed purpose? What am I supposed to produce more of in this world? Because we talked about before, the point is not to bloom. That's what society tells us. Oh, just, you want personal growth because we just want you to bloom and shine and be this beautiful thing. That is not the point of a flower, my friends. The point of the flower is to produce exponentially more seed. And that is my very favorite parable, which is the parable of the sower. The sower went out to sow. He sows seed everywhere. He broadcasts it widely. And the seed that falls on the good soil, it grows up. It has what it needs. It's got nutrients in the soil. It's got the right amount of sunshine, the right amount of rain. And a lot of that God handles for us. But a lot of it too, like the soil, that's what we've got to work on. What nutrients are we putting in? How are we making our time, our day, our physical body better to better support what we need in order to grow? And the point is that when the farmer comes back, he reaps a harvest. And it says some 100-fold, some 50-fold, some 10-fold. The point is that we multiply our factor.
Yeah.
So the most important question you can ask yourself is, what seed am I? What kind of plant am I supposed to be growing into? And what are the growing requirements? Because my least favorite quip, whatever you want to call it, is just bloom where you're planted. Sorry, that doesn't work in the gardening world. If you plant a cactus in a mushy swamp, it's not gonna grow.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's good. That's a really good point. Because that's kind of like that subliminal messaging, right? And we just think, like, we see those little sayings and then we don't think anything about it. We don't really, and then it's like it becomes ingrained in our brain that we can bloom wherever we're planted. And that's just not true. That's so good. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm so excited for my listeners to hear this and check out Aurie's, because I'll be on her podcast very soon too, and we'll have a whole different conversation there.
Yes, we will, and it's going to be such a good one. I'm so excited to dive deep into HTMA with you.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, y'all have a great day.